It says it's starting. Okay, so we're live now. So go ahead and run the test and see if that link works.
Sent out.
And they say black people can't use technology. Look at us go. I'm nervous to discuss this.
We're doing this strictly off the cuff, so this is going to be interesting.
It's going to be the best one yet, gentlemen.
Probably right. And the light bulb went out in my filming room. Even the appliances are upset. Results. This fucking light moved to Canada. For real.
Yeah, I might run away with Anna. I love the 3 black over Willie.
Yeah, that's great. So great. Man.
Oh god, that's a trip.
3 black in the building. My boarding school, my tightest friends were like the urban black kids. We were like a cohort, and we called ourselves D Block. I don't really know where the name came from because I came in late, but I'm so proud of that name now. I wasn't quite right back then, but I suspect who came up with it was, so it wasn't a coincidence.
We got 1 viewer, so I think that.
Yeah?
It says 1 viewer, so I'm guessing that's you.
Oh, it's not me, but it might be Caitlin's brother.
Okay.
I sent him
YouTube. Apologies if you're watching this and you're getting ready before we are. We're gonna get ready soon.
but real talk, we're trying to figure out this stuff. What is this links? Let me check out this links. Okay. Do y'all have that links part on y'all's page?
Would you put it in the chat?
No, it's just showing up in the bottom right-hand corner of mine of links. I'll share mine now, so we can get cranky here in a second.
Yeah, if you
So
go to the
mine.
website, it's live now.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, I don't even know if we need to share a link.
Well, I just shared it, so
we can just put a link to the YouTube channel.
That's what mine was linked to the YouTube channel.
Is it coming through YouTube right now?
Yeah.
Oh, well, fuck. Let's do that then.
Yeah. You can just click on it live now.
Yo, Willie, put that link in the chat.
I just did. Oh, well.
Ooh, neat.
Technology is great. Oh, man.
All right. Do we think that one works?
I think it does, hopefully.
I just put it in, and I'm watching myself.
Yeah, it's very.
Holy shit. Okay. That's fucking weird. All right, that one works. All right, I'm going on record with that.
What up?
So I guess it does work.
That's so awful. Cut that off. All right, safe.
Okay, so I just sorry, Case brother, you just got muted.
Oh, so they'll show up. Wait, they'll show up here?
Oh no, he just showed up in the chat, so I just muted him. Sorry, Matt.
think Price. That's probably from the one Price sent.
That might be from the earlier one.
Okay. Well, I'm able to see how many viewers. Matt's just part of the chat now, so he's stoked about it. It's all good.
He's our studio audience.
I saw that Juice commented on the joint.
Yeah. Shared it. Thanks, Juice.
Okay, at the timeline. Apparently, I just had a couple stuff that I just didn't add to my timeline.
Guy's a big picture of Willie's crazy face.
Oh, yeah, that's kind of a crazy face.
That's a great pause.
Well,
Good.
either way, this is something that we can post later on. Obviously, we can cut everything before this. But
No, it's all natural. This is all part of the experience.
hey, I mean, you're right. Let me go ahead and I'll text Tom this and say that.
Oh shit! Yeah.
That we're live for him right now, and let him know.
We just got to edit out the part about the revolution. We can't let them know about it yet.
We cannot know that the revolution is live.
Not
I
until
know
the
where you
flyer-
bought those shirts from. It damn sure won the men's department.
Not until we make the revolution cookies to hand out.
As you're just rocking your, Women Mary sack hoodie that you got for being a part of the student council. But let's get down to the real business here. So we're taking a look at our reactions to the election. I wanted to add the dramatic pause there for effect.
I took a deep breath.
Yeah, sometimes you have to. And again, this is something we'll share later on, no matter how many people look at it for a live event. Obviously, Price was able to push it out to whatever people that he had, but honestly, we didn't do a fantastic job of marketing, but we can share it, later on when we get into it. But I guess just to be able to start, I know, Tymon, you want to be able to talk about just what our three reactions were to it. That check-in, y'all can say hi to good old Matt. He's hanging out on here too. Probably shared the wrong league. It's all good, we got everybody hanging out today.
It's a learning experience, man.
But again, I said, we'll kick it off to y'all guys, and then y'all can just kind of check in and say, what your reaction was to the election results when you woke up this morning, were able to see it, and we can start it that way. Like how are you guys feeling after this election?
Bryce, you go.
Yeah, and I mentioned this a little bit earlier when when I did a little short live thing, but I'm waking up this morning and waking up to a lot of conversations with you boys, and talking to Willie, talking to Tymon. Well, not Tymon, the sleepers on the West Coast, but sort of getting his from the night, Willie's from the morning, and sort of catching a little bit of some of the anger, some of the confusion, some of the disillusionment, some of the disenfranchisement, and a lot of the blame game. Well, fuck the Democrats for putting up a bad candidate, and they screwed us from the start. This is all racist. This whole thing's all cocked up. People who were super pissed at their friends. If you voted for a third party, you can fucking ladle diarrhea in your own earlobes. All that kind of shit. And everybody was just so mad. Everybody's so mad. And then all the Trump supporters are like, oh, you guys are being sore losers, and so it's this whole, the divide, as shocking as it sounds, got bigger. It got worse, and we were already in a pretty bad place, but it got worse. And I mentioned this earlier, that to me, I was upset at first, and that resentment and anger kind of turned to disappointment in sort of an introspective quest for understanding, right? Understanding, why these things happen, and understanding that we're in this place that we're in. And we're here, and no matter how much we fight about it, no matter how much we talk about it, how many Facebook posts are out there, how many clips of Martin Luther King's speeches are out there, we're here, right? And this is what we've got, and this is where we're at. So yeah, be mad, and yeah, be upset, but channel that the right way. We got to continue to make progress, and we'll get into this a little bit more later. But one of my big things is that we as millennials, and I know Tymon talked about this earlier, we have a huge opportunity, in being an extremely diverse generation, and the most accepting generation, and the largest numbers-wise. We have a huge opportunity, but we can't fuck each other up. We can't let this whole thing tear us apart.
Yeah. So I was, I'm on the West Coast, so I was still awake when they called it. Like it was probably 12:30 or so local time when they called it, and I watched Trump's speech live. I was driving home during Hillary's concession speech, and I haven't watched it yet. And I hear that that's kind of like the moment that it really hit for a lot of people, and it became like a really emotional thing. For me, like the disbelief was definitely the overpowering emotion that I was feeling right away. And I think for a lot of people that's the case. And I think a lot of it was fear, especially from like my minority friends, especially from like my Hispanic friends, who might have immigrants in their families. There was a lot of fear, and then there's obviously a lot of anger too. But with the dust settling today, I actually feel like there was actually a lot of constructive conversation that already started. And if you're one of those people, kudos. Is anyone else getting some weird feedback, by the way? I don't know. I figured it out. Anyway, sorry if our technical difficulties are making this hard to watch. But anyway, there was a lot of constructive criticism and a lot of actual productive conversation that happened today. And I apologize to my company. I was not very productive today because I was involved in a lot of discussion that I saw just because, priorities, that's more important to me. And one of the overarching themes is populism, and how Trump and Bernie who were trying to tell America that these two political parties no longer represent the majority opinion. They represent these two like archaic parties that are at this point just kind of voting on inertia and considering themselves the lesser evil, and people are siding with them. And Trump's election is like a resounding announcement that we're no longer going to vote with the party that we just feel we had to by birth or by socioeconomic class or whatever it is. So that's definitely where I'm at. That's my biggest thing, is that I'm really thinking about the future, and I'm thinking about the political party that's going to emerge from this. I think that the best way for America to grow from this election is to create a new party, a party that is unified on social issues, which a lot of, especially young people are. I think the number was that if only people under 40 had voted, Hillary would have had 504 electoral votes. So, I mean, there's a lot of statistical inferences to make based on the statistics, and I'll wrap this up in a second. But there's a lot that we can take away in terms of making next election a lot better, where we feel like our voices are being heard, where we're not voting out of frustration or anger or fear, and we're voting for actual good politics. And so that's where I'm going to be. And so a lot of the conversations that I'll be having probably on 3BL and just personally are going to be, how do we make that happen? Because I'm definitely committed to local politics. Like I was going into it, and I actually credit that to Bernie, because that was my dude from the beginning. And I don't even want to get into the shit about whether Bernie would have won or whether Bernie took away from Hillary, because you can just study history if you're saying stuff like that. It's just not right. And I don't even really want to address it, because I'll get hot if I address that. But you really want to blame someone who ran a pretty freaking fair campaign, and all he did was draw comparisons between the two different sides of liberal voters. That's not who sunk this election for Hillary. So I'll say that the big takeaway here has to be, what do we want our political parties to be moving forward? And I'm going to be thinking a lot about that.
What about you, Oldtimer?
Oldtimer, okay. So for me, it was, I can't say that I was very surprised by the results, but definitely disappointed. So it's one of the ones where, especially when that last push from, not necessarily a push, that last statement from Comey came out and was like, hey, we received some emails from Anthony Weiner. We're going to be checking out, X amount of emails that might be important, right? As soon as that came out recently, it's like, okay, well, that's pretty much the last nail in the coffin. I truly believe that Trump had a very strong chance of being able to win after that came out recently. So when I woke up, again, so, Tymon said he didn't go to sleep until about, midnight his time. I woke up.
I watched the election and then I stayed up drinking in my living room by myself until 3 a.m. So I'm
because that's what we do on this show, is that we drown our sorrows.
I rarely drink alone and I rarely drink at home, but I needed it. And
No, like I said, so I woke up at 1:45 this morning on Eastern Standard Time. Time on the West Coast. So 1:45. Didn't go to sleep till about 3:30. Waking up and I was just like, well, this is real. When I went to sleep about 10:45. And when I went to sleep, I was like, okay, well, these East Coast votes are wrapping up. At that time, I don't think Florida, Michigan, Ohio, I don't think those have been, I think Ohio might have been decided, but I don't think some of those states have been decided yet. And so I was like, okay, cool. Not all of them will go Trump. Once you get to the West Coast, that's usually a big push for the Democratic Party. Hillary should be clean, good to go. That was my ignorance, right? so I had gone to sleep expecting that once I went to the West Coast, things will fall like they usually lay, where West Coast, once you get to the coast, things lie very democratic, whether it's West Coast or East Coast, right? Woke up, saw that Hillary had lost Ohio by, 8+ points, that Trump had gained 30+ percentage points of the Latino vote in Florida, and so he won Florida. And I was just like, well, shit. This election was one where I was 100% ready to vote Republican. 100%. I had conversations with a couple of conservative friends, and I was like, yo, I'm on the Rubio train. I was on the Kasich train. I was ready to swallow it, my pride, and be like, you know what? All right, cool. I can somehow reconcile voting for Ted Cruz, right? Like,
just shut the computer. No,
that is how far it had gone. And I was like, you know what? Rubio, Kasich, and I was like, am I really going to have to go for Ted Cruz when I think this man is borderline
Nazi?
I was talking myself into it, right? And then it ends up being Trump, right? So when it ends up being Trump, the thing that gets me, especially when we're talking about who this man will be as a president, right? Everybody's saying not my president. I'll get to that piece later on. I was just saying not my president. The thing that always is a big kicker and is scary for me is the fact that when I woke up at 3:30 in the morning and I was looking at reactions, 1:45 in the morning, I was looking at reactions, David Duke, the former Grand Wizard of the KKK, was saying that this was one of the best days in American history. And my mind exploded. I was like, wait a second. Like, people are legit voting for a man that is supported by a former Grand Wizard of KKK. Like, that's mind-boggling to me, right? Not only did he go at Mexicans saying that, they're rapists and they're sending their worst people possible to the country. Not only did he go at women and talk about grabbing pussies. Not only did he say that, hey, black people, why not? Why not, really? Like, that's the most elementary of arguments possible. But it's like, you know what? Y'all still suck, is how it felt to me. He's coming out, he's like, y'all still suck. Why not vote for me? Not only that all that had happened, not only did he go at John McCain as a former prisoner of war, not only did he go at the family of the Gold Star soldier, all of this happened But the thing that was always the big kicker for me was that the former Grand Wizard of the KKK was supported this man through and through. And I spent way too much time on Twitter, and I would be clicking on Twitter, hit 3, 4 different people, and it always ended up in the alternate right section where you're looking at a white nationalist saying, "Hey, F black people, I'm going to start the hashtag," I forgot what it was, but pretty much just saying that there's white discrimination and white people want to be eradicated, and we need to have more white, whatever. I don't care. The thing that got me was the fact that David Duke, who was such an adamant supporter of Donald Trump, that's my.
He had KKK support for a while too. I mean, just to jump in for a quick second, I get where you're coming from, and just to rephrase it for people, like, we feel like there's people there's bigots, and there's always going to be bigots, and they came out in droves for this election, and they had an impact. But there's other people who knew that they were voting alongside bigots all along. Like, it's one thing to say, I'm fed up with Hillary, I want to vote for the Republican Party. It's another thing to say, like, I don't care about the fact that I'm voting with people who are openly racist, openly white supremacist, openly sexist, openly Islamophobic. Like, to vote with those people, that is disheartening to you and to me and to a lot of people. And so, like, I'm not gonna say shame on Trump supporters. Like, I'm not gonna say it. I want to say it, but I'm not gonna say it. So I'll just say it without saying it. But when I think about, like, who's on my team, I won't let people on my team in the Black Lives Matter movement say, for example, if I know that they're homophobic, I won't allow myself to be associated with those people. Like, I won't allow people, I won't align with people who are not aligned with me. And so that was kind of soul crushing for a lot of people. Like, Hillary didn't lose the election because of bigots. There's not enough of them. And there's a lot of them. I understand that. They are an impact group. But there's not so many of them that they were the only reason they lost the election. Hillary lost the middle class, especially in the Rust Belt, but she lost the middle class. And that's really where I think you're coming in with you were basically going to vote Republican.
So let's hold on. Let me jump in before you go back into your policy bit. For me, and so I was just looking at some of the comments, and someone commented. He said, "As a longtime Republican, I can assure you we're not all like that." And I want to assure everyone who's watching that this is not a commentary on partisanship. And I think that's what Tymon was talking about a little bit in his intro, is that we're getting away from the way those parties operate and how we're developing, hopefully, a new, better party that revolves around practical politics and not partisanship. But, I mean, it is an absolutely vital thing that we can't lose sight of. We can't lose sight of the way this election turned a mirror on where we're at socially. We can't make light of that. And we can't make light of all the stories that have even come out today about, like, Muslims being accosted in Walmarts and, like, all this other bullshit. Not to say, we're not saying Republicans are racist, right? But we are saying that this election showed us, a lot of the true colors of the folks who we, stand next to in lines and who our kids go to school with. And that's fucked up.
No, so the thing that gets me right is that I agree. We're not saying that Republicans are racist, because I know many a good Republican, hands down. I can't argue that fact. Many a good one. And the thing that was always interesting to me is the fact that I feel like that's a very general term, that there is definitely people that I knew that were Republicans that had definitely separated themselves from the quote Trump campaign, right? And so they were separating conservatism from Trump. The thing that gets me, and I know that this was definitely probably a way that many had gone, is that they had looked at it and they're saying that I am a one-issue voter. I am a two-issue voter. And the reason that I'm voting for Trump is because I want the Supreme Court to go right, and I want a better economy. And so the the pretty much disclaimer is that everybody was saying, oh, if we want a better economy, we're going to go Trump because he's a businessman. So there's that understanding. So it definitely was just interesting being able to see the feedback and the information that's provided by people that were like that. But for me, as a young black male, I still can't shake the view that David Duke is overjoyed that Donald Trump is winning. Like, I've tried. I've legit tried. I've had many of one of these, by the way, to try to understand.
Brand placement right there.
I know. Maybe they might hook us up. I don't know. But, like, I've tried to understand, and I still can't get past that. Like, when I was looking, Facebook actually, I think, did a okay job. It's still kind of left-leaning, but of at least giving you the opportunity to be able to look at what the presidential candidate stood for, right? And with that, I was a fan of what Evan McMullin had compared to what the other candidates had. But the fact that ours is a very strict two-party system, and I can't say that, again, I'm not in the right state of mind to say that's right or wrong right now. But the fact that we are in a two-party system and that Evan McMullin and Gary Johnson and Joe Stein, they were just pushed to the wayside, and it was just Hillary versus Trump. But even looking at that, it's still just, again, I can't shake the fact that there's so many white nationalists and David Duke that are so openly supporting our president-elect. Like, it's uncomfortable. It's very uncomfortable. No matter what you voted for Trump for, the fact that these guys are aligned with that, it's very, very uncomfortable for me.
And I think a lot of people are feeling that fear. Like, the next 4 years, it has potential to get crazy. Like, I won't say anything is said and done. I'm not jumping to conclusions. And I think that I can get to a little bit later. Like, I've been telling people that there's a very distinct silver lining from this election, but people are afraid, especially because the House and the Senate and the Supreme Court are all going to be Republican. And it's not even like it was a moderate Republican, even though Donald Trump can backtrack on his campaign platform like many politicians do. He didn't campaign with a moderate platform. He campaigned with a very right-wing platform when he spoke about certain issues, which, of course, he didn't touch base on the economy. He didn't touch base on the economy. He touched base on national security because he knew that would get the votes. He touched base on the fact that Hillary wasn't to be trusted because he knew that would get the votes. He didn't necessarily cater his campaign, nor did he need to, clearly, on issues of the economy and foreign policy and how he's going to, he mentioned a little bit, but not a ton. So he has the potential to be something different than what we think. But people right now are rightfully worried that he will be extremely conservative, especially when he's thinking about making Rudy Giuliani, who's probably my least favorite person on the planet, his attorney general. And I'll let you go, Preston. But there is potential for, and at the same time, convince Congress to put down the Republican or Democratic flag and actually keep this in check. That's kind of that's my hope for the next 4 years.
So I'll say that I'm not overly concerned about, again, I might be putting my foot in my mouth, but I'm not overly concerned about a Republican Congress or Senate, what have you, right? One of the things that I've been, I won't say preaching, but that I've been mentioning with this whole process is that with a Trump presidency, there's a potential, there's only one Supreme Court seat that's open. So that's Scalia, and he passed away.
Two more predictably, or there's a chance that two more could open up.
That's what I'm saying. Like, so
Yeah.
there's the one that's for sure, and then there's a couple that there's a couple people that are nearing their 80s that may retire from that seat. And so when we're looking at that, there's two things that come to mind, and that for me, again, this is where I know that there's going to be people that disagree, and this is where it makes this an open conversation. Is that one? I think that Roe v. Wade, because there's a very strong stance on abortion, can come back into play.
That's in trouble. That's in serious trouble.
Yeah. So again, so that's my opinion there. Where I think Roe v. Wade can come back into play if it goes extremely to the conservative side, and how they interpret the Constitution there. And then two, gay marriage is another one I think can come into play. And I think that's what when I think about the Supreme Court, I think about those two aspects coming up. For me, it was never about the Second Amendment. I don't think guns will ever go away. I'm not in that camp where it's just like where people thought that, oh my God, Hillary's going to get elected and her guns are going to be taken away and we can't have our guns. I think that caters to fear mongering. I don't think that's ever going to happen. I think there might be more strict laws where I think it's easier for me to get a gun than it is for me to get a driver's license, right? But I think that the abortion topic and I think that gay marriage topic will be very heavily considered in a conservative-leaning Supreme Court. So when it comes to the Congress and Senate, whatever you, I'm not necessarily concerned about that. I think if it goes with the Supreme Court, it might grow to more than just one Supreme Court justice that Trump's going to be able to put forward. I think that's where it becomes a little bit more interesting, right? But in that same vein, before we officially went live in this whole thing as we were playing around with it, I will say that I'm definitely more right-leaning when it comes to the fiscal responsibility of our country. I think that we do have a lot of money that we can do a better job of being able to manage. I think we're not the most agile of, quote, businesses. So again, I think that that's something that we should be able to consider as we going forward. But I think that when we do think about right-leaning, I think the Supreme Court justice coming in with gay marriage and with the abortion topic, I think those would be very heavy hitters, and I think those are ones that, again, I'm very left-leaning on. I think it should be pro-choice, and I think that when you're looking at gay marriage, is if you're gay, go ahead, get married. You're good. I think those are going to be the two topics that are going to be very interesting going forward with a Trump presidency.
I want to take a step back to something Tymon mentioned about the campaigning, and when you look at where we are and what happened, and I want to look at sort of the policy versus the politicking. I mean, is it possible? And this question is something I've been interested in today. First of all, people are freaking the fuck out, and some of them rightly so, and for the right reasons. Look, a lot of the ideological emboldening of some super fucked up shit is already very apparent. But is it possible that we look at this and you say, look, he did what he had to do to appeal to a group he knew he would win? He said the shit he had to say. He did the stuff he had to do. He poked the right Hillary buttons to get to where he needed to get to. Does he actually believe he can get Mexico to build a wall? Is he really going to deport millions of immigrants? I don't know. And I'm not a political scientist, but to a degree, you look at it and you say, okay, there's the policy versus the politics. And here's what I'm worried about. Pence is a fucking world-class psycho. That dude is totally out there, and
that's
so in the realm –
going away. That's why LGBT's got it. The LGBT's in trouble. Planned Parenthood's cooked. I think Planned Parenthood's going to be just devastated. Like, Pence's agenda was extremely conservative. Like you're saying, Trump wasn't always even a Republican. But Pence, man, he scares me. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Believes that gay people can be changed by electrocution.
Yeah, conversion therapy. Yeah, that motherfucker's insane. But the comparison of the policy versus the politicking, I think, is something that's interesting. It's something we could would do well to consider. We have this very visceral reaction to holy shit, everything's going up in smoke. But to think about how much of this will actually get done? How much will he actually do? You know, can we take a step back and look at it and say, look, we're blaming him, and he said some deplorable things. Don't get me wrong.
Grace is deplorable, by the way. And I think Price may or may not have just froze, but it's arguable.
I mean, to where he's going, there's still a chance to reconcile the opinions of the American citizens. Like, it's not like everything that was said during the campaign is what's going to be done over the next 4 years. Like, our voice still counts. Like, as the president of the United States, Donald Trump has the obligation to listen to us, and especially given the fact that the popular opinion was so, the popular vote was so close. You know, there's a lot of moderate people who voted for him but don't align with everything that he said. And I'll hand it back to Price in a second, but like, those people are going to hold him accountable, and those people are not necessarily just going to like vote for him again in 4 years or continue to support him throughout the 4 years with approval ratings and stuff if he just does what he says. So he still has to listen to the American people. He can't just cast aside everyone who said that they were a Democrat and you know, like, just go with this extreme right. So there's definitely still potential to reconcile his platform. Is that kind of what you were getting at, Price?
Yeah, well, yeah, look, I'm just saying that, first of all, let me be very clear, you do not get a pass. You know, I don't want to have to explain to my kid that you don't tell the Muslim kids they have to go back where they came from. You don't call Hispanic kids bad hombres. You don't grab women's private parts. None of that shit flies. I don't want to, you know, I think we're thankful to be in a position where, look, we're young enough to be able to look at this shit and be like, wow, I'm just really thankful I'm not responsible for another human being. You know, I don't want little Price like grabbing pussies on the playground. I can't deal with that shit. Right? And that's no good. And I don't want someone who we've appointed to the highest office in America, someone who my son or daughter would look at, right, and look to for guidance and for, you know, sometimes for answers and for like responsible opinions on the world, for that to be what they see. That's astonishing. That's absolutely, and he's like the human version of an above ground pool. It drives me crazy. But the thing of it is that, you know, when you look at that, and Tymon, you made a good point, but you look at that and you say, hey, you know, at some point he you know, he played you being, you know, the folks who were like, yeah, you know, he's going to bring us back, and he's going to get he's, you know, fuck the Washington elite. Well, okay, but the guy's a billionaire, right? Like, you know, I mean, am I way off? Am I not understanding how politics work? But if your whole platform is like, yeah, the elites are like fucking with us, and we're sort of these lower class citizens who are unspoken for, well, congratulations, you played yourself, you know. But anyway, you know,
let me ask this question as a little bit of a pivot. So, you mean he's president now? Like, obviously, there's some people who are like, that's not my president. Obviously, the people who voted for Trump are like, it's your duty to, you know, serve and like honor his presidency. Which is, you know, I'm sure some of those same people had the hashtag no Obama, or, you know, like all those, like, all the birther people are coming out now saying you gotta obey. But, you know, that it's true to a certain extent. And I think I'm still wrapping my head around how I'm gonna prepare for the next 4 years. Like, do I need to turn up my protesting a notch? Do I need to start writing to my congressman right now? You know, do I need to start writing to other people's congressmen? Like, what are your plans? I know we haven't had much time to think about it, but that doesn't have to be a very well-constructed answer. But like, what are your plans for the next 4 years? Like, what are you gonna change anything, or are you gonna kind of go be a successful black man and changing it that way?
My reaction to it is that in terms of protesting and standing up, I think the great thing about our democracy is that one man can't do it by himself. And so no matter how much we may feel uncomfortable about Trump or how uncomfortable we may feel about Pence, those guys in and of themselves will not make wide sweeping changes across the board. And the reason why I say that, you know, going back, even though there is a Republican, you know, Republican majority within, you know, Congress and Senate and whatnot, within House and Senate, excuse me. many of those people I feel were part of that, that hashtag Never Trump camp, right? Even if there weren't a ton of them, a lot of people have started to separate themselves in terms of being a Republican, separated themselves from the Trump campaign versus what conservatism, yeah, whatever that word is.
Wow.
I know.
Put the beer down.
This is the issue.
The
Okay. Sorry.
But like
I forgot to vote.
but it like I said, it is definitely interesting to see how that I feel no matter how disgruntled people might be with those two guys, that I don't think they have the power to be able to change a ton of stuff, right? Yeah, they have to be able to get a majority. And so based off of that, I feel like my actions may not change that much, but I feel that there's going to be a piece of me when, as I said, I saw a Facebook post today, it was like, it's from a white female, and she was talking about it, and she was saying that, hey, anytime that I now see somebody having to push aside a sexist comment, I'm going to be able to stand up. Anytime I see somebody being subjected to a racial comment that's not appropriate, I'm not going to be silent. So it's one of those ones where people now feel more empowered or feel the responsibility to be empowered to speak up against these type of actions, right? And I think that is something that may be spread across the board. Where beforehand, where it's just like, okay, hey, this person's dealing with racism. It doesn't affect me, so I don't want to have to raise my voice and get involved with that because it's something that it's a topic I don't want to discuss. I think people may now be more involved in those type of conversations. And so, for example, for myself, if there's somebody getting harassed or picked on for being homosexual, I feel like I may now be more inclined to speak up for that. If there's something for a white guy who's seeing a minority being picked on or having to face some type of discrimination, they may feel more inclined to speak up against that. So I think there's going to be more of that type of quote activism instead of just sitting idly by and being like, well, it may get better, right? So I think you'll see more of that versus obviously there will be protests going on within the next, few weeks, but I don't know if that will last throughout the whole presidency.
Yeah, I mean, I'm admittedly worried. The part of it that I think bugs me is that I want white people to stop telling me how to feel about shit. And I want, in the same way that, I'm not going to talk to my gay friend and be like, look, you're overreacting, right? You don't have the same depth of experience that I do or that we do, so don't come at me with a whole bunch of shit like you're all of a sudden an expert. The one thing that I'm worried about is this sort of emboldening of folks to be like, we like to think we're not impressionable. We like to think that we're above being influenced by anything. We're adults, we're smart. I have my own opinions about shit, right? And you can't tell me anything anyway. The simple fact of the matter is that all of a sudden when your president is, kick out all those hombres and frisk all those Negroes in the streets, okay, all of a sudden people are like, yeah! Like, okay, that's an issue, and that's an extreme example, but, we can't get to a point where we start to backtrack. And I'm confident that our generation has done a good job of being informed, but there's always that in the back of my mind and that understanding that, do we have to be a little more alert? Do we have to be a little more on call? And it's going to be a little bit of a wait and see period. I think that personally for me, it's a little bit of a challenge. And I think if harnessed the right way, could be positive. Look, I think that we are sort of in a position, and I said this earlier, where we are a family with a degenerate father. And we have to be successful in spite of that. We have to look at our drunk dad who's like fucking strippers and stuff. And we have to be like, look, man, I'm going to do my business and I'm going to go to college and I'm going to get my shit together in spite of this. We have that challenge in front of us. We have the ability to do it. We have the capacity to do it. But we have to nut up and say, there's going to be a few other obstacles that I didn't predict. I'm not going to get all the support that I thought I was going to get. or, all the same learnings and tools that some others might have, but I still, I owe it to the folks who came before me who fought to get us where we are. I owe it to my children, right, to sort of leave the arena a little better than I found it. So for me, the challenge is going to sort of bolster my resolve to do things a little bit differently. We've all been blessed to grow up in scenarios that, we're tinted a certain way, but we're not, terrible by any stretch of the imagination, and went to a university that was very comfortable. I feel personally it's incumbent upon me to start to take a little bit harder look at getting out of my world, and trying to use the resources that I have and use some of the luck that I've been given over my 28 years to make sure that other people have the same access to opportunities.
Yeah. So I might seem calm or catatonic or, optimistic right now. And I generally am pretty optimistic. And I said I would get to the silver lining. So I'll get to that silver lining now, and then I'll address what I plan on doing different personally. Like I've already, like I said earlier, there's been a lot of talk about the political parties not representing us, and how Donald and Bernie were both populist candidates that basically their main platform was that the current platforms of the Democratic and Republican parties are basically just, they don't fit, they don't suit us anymore. So, I think that I'm gonna try and be part of this new political party that's gonna be created. I don't know what it's gonna be called yet, and I don't know exactly what the policies are gonna be, but I feel like we have an opportunity to really shape that party, and it starts now, because 4 years is not a lot of time. If you end up getting to the presidential election and it's essentially between Republicans, Democrats, and Libertarians are only going to take 2% of the vote in a state, that's when you're throwing your vote away to not vote for Hillary or Donald. And it still means something. You still have the right to vote for whoever you want. But if you had created that party that you wanted to believe in beforehand, then you wouldn't have had to give a vote to somebody that you knew beyond any doubt was going to lose. You waited until the election to throw away your vote. You did a disservice to yourself. You could have done the work to get a party, to grow a party, to campaign for a party that could challenge the Democratic and Republican Party, because as soon as one of them loses, I feel like the lid comes off. And maybe not. I honestly thought Hillary was going to win, and I thought Republicans were actually going to be at the vanguard of this movement. I thought there were going to be Republicans who were like, we can't win with the bigotry and the elitism being what defines our party.
Real quick though, is that based off of Twitter's not a small world, but I do think a lot of that did happen.
And it's not an all or nothing phenomenon. There's a lot of people who are changed by the result of this election who are Republican. They're like, shit, I didn't really think Donald Trump's going to win. I have a good friend who I was texting throughout the entire election who's Republican. He voted for Gary Johnson, and we're in California, so it doesn't matter too much. And that's another point that I'll get to in a sec. But I want there to be a new political party, and I want that party to be socially liberal, as I feel like a lot of America is, especially young America, right? That we can't. I wanna discuss economic issues. I can't even get to the truth of them because the way politics are run, and the point that I'm gonna get to next is about journalism for that reason and the media. But I want there to be a party that represents a pragmatic agenda with socially liberal values, because liberal values are pragmatic. Why are you investing so much energy and time and telling other people how to live their lives? That makes no sense. Short on money, so you're really going to lobby for telling someone else how to live and how to believe because those are your morals? That just doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense from a moral perspective. It doesn't make sense from a practical perspective. This new party, I want to actually have a hand in creating it, and I want to see if we can pull support from both parties so that we can actually debate the institutions of Democrats and Republicans on real issues and force them to reevaluate their positions that at this point have just been, dug into the dirt 200 years deep. So the last point that I'll make is another area that I want to be active. Like I live in Santa Monica and super liberal. I live in California, super liberal. If I stay local, even though local is important, then I'm still not in touch with the states that decide the election. It's the swing states in the Midwest and stuff that decide the election. And a lot of media coverage caters to the coast. They cover things in Florida. They cover things in New York. They cover things in Washington and Oregon and California. They don't cover the Midwest. And then those people say, well, our voices weren't heard. And the media has a lot to do with that. So we need journalism to step up and cover the conditions that are going on in these communities that are super white and super conservative. Let's stay on top of them and see how they're treating minorities in their communities. Let's actually engage them in conversation about what they want to see change. And I think that journalism has to change. The big media is a huge detriment to society, and we need to be more active in supporting journalists who are covering things in areas that we don't currently have access to. Like Sean King in Ferguson is a great example. We need more of him in more places. So I don't know how I'm going to support that, but I want to support that.
So let me ask one sort of final question. We can make these answers short because I know we've taken up a lot of everybody's time, and Will is about to fall over. So when you think about the vote and the voting electorate, what is our job or our duty as voters? I got a question that came in that said exactly this. It said, do you believe it's our civic duty to vote? And how far does that extend? And I bring that up because we look at, again, we sort of harken back to the way these campaigns are run. And we look at these commercials like Hillary Clinton's aborting live fetuses in Lowe's with cobalt pliers. And people are like, oh my God, all our children are dying. And then there's a Trump one in there, but it would sort of be true. So I can't even really go down that road. But something extremely alarmist, and Willie called it fear mongering. And it's true. And we laugh about that. And we're like, oh my God, that's so ridiculous. But that shit works, right? And me and Willie had this argument like 2 days ago. The vote, right? The vote. Okay, it's your right to vote. It's an amazing, and it's an amazing privilege, and it's one of the greatest things about the U.S. Outside of, Rupert would say 7-Eleven chili dogs. But is it our duty to vote? And then my question would be, should every vote count?
Tymon, you go first because, again, me and Press got into this the other day. So
it's your duty to vote the same way it's your duty to do jury duty. Like, if you don't, I believe that you're doing a disservice to your country. Like, there should be, and I understand why people don't vote because they feel like none of the candidates that are out there represent them. But you didn't do your duty early enough then. If all the candidates who are on the ballot didn't represent you, then why were you not finding someone who did? Why were you not making them represent you? Why were you not reaching out to them and being you're proactive about getting them to see your points? And I'm a hypocrite. Like, this is only recently that I've been interested in doing this and feeling like I can do this, but I vote, and I feel like you have an obligation to vote not for yourself, but for other people. Like, that's different than imposing your morals on someone. But by not voting, I think of all the people who can't vote, and I'm like, I need to vote for them. Like, the disenfranchisement of Black people is well documented. Like, if you really want to be a naysayer, you can probably doubt it still, but it's hard to doubt the fact that jailing and removing the right to vote of Black people was a major part of the political strategy for conservatives. And when I think of that, I'm like, I got to vote every single time. And I got to do more than vote. I got to make sure that I'm voting for the right things and looking out for everyone and not just for myself. Because voting it's something that you do for everyone. It's not something that you do for yourself. Even if the candidate that you would vote for isn't perfect, because who the hell is perfect anyway? I'll leave it at that.
Should every vote count? That wasn't me raising my hand about being perfect. Kind of. Should every vote count?
Let me answer the first part first.
Okay.
And then we'll get into that. Should every vote count? It was interesting because some people are talking about should I vote? It's like everybody goes back to the argument. Um, our ancestors died for the right to vote, and somebody put up our ancestors died for the right to choose whether we vote or not necessarily to vote. And so I thought that was very interesting because it's a different take and a different perspective on, hey, our ancestors died, you must vote because our ancestors fought for this right. Whether it's women's suffrage, whether it's African Americans being able to vote, after slavery, yada, yada, yada. For me, in 2012, I didn't vote. I would have voted for Obama. I was like, I was part of that. The apathetic crowd was like, you know what? Obama's going to win by a landslide. I ain't going to vote. I'm good to go. Approaching this election, I was like, you know what? I feel like I definitely need to vote. I was up at 5 o'clock in the morning. My fiance, she dragged me out, standing in the line at 5:45, just hanging out, ready to vote. And I think I have a much better appreciation because of how passionate she was about wanting us to vote. She's a minority. She's a Latina. And I think that we do have a responsibility to cast a vote. But not only do we have a responsibility to cast a vote, we have a responsibility to be educated on who we are voting for. I don't know how it's going to happen. I don't know when it's going to happen, but I think there needs to be a movement where we move away from it. You know what? I'm going to vote for every Republican possible, or I'm going to vote for every Democrat possible, and actually try to take these people at face value or for what they stand for and look at them as individuals and not just go down partisan lines. If we stay with a two-party system, is that going to ever change? I don't know. If we broaden it, is it going to change? I don't know. But I think that as an electorate, we're not educated enough. And now this ties into what you're saying, Price. And so should every vote count? I know me and you kind of did this a little bit, and we talked about literacy tests. And I was like, there is
It wasn't
no way.
literacy. It was comprehension.
Comprehension, which is a fucking synonym for literacy, right? And we were talking about is like, should people have to pass a test to show that they're competent and showing that they know what is going on within the candidates, etc. And so I looked at that and I was like, there's no way you can pass that because what ties that draw Tymon based on your face? I know exactly where you're going with this because that's the exact same place I took Price to. It was like, this is going back to when African American black men and women were men, women were able to vote at the time. Men were disenfranchised off a literacy test, and that made it so that made it that a huge majority of white Americans could vote. Not freed slaves, but only white Americans vote because of literacy tests. There's no way you can go ahead and push forward in saying that, you know what, you all have to show a certain amount of competency in order to be able to vote. That won't fly within how our democracy works.
So we're saying you have to do that to drive a car, if you do that to pilot a motor vehicle, right?
I know where you're going, Praise. I know where you're going.
You don't know me.
There's a lot. Hold on. There's a lot of people who are. First of all, that test would be subjective. There's no way to objectively enforce a test that would let you know that someone's qualified to vote. There are people who can't read who are actually pretty savvy and who actually have a lot of morals that are well thought out, and they deserve to have their voices heard. So if you made it about social studies or history or being able to read or being able to do math, you'd basically be biasing it against a certain group.
I agree with you. I didn't say that. I didn't say solve a fucking parabola. I said there should be some sort of standard, though. And I agree with you. Look, I agree with both of you guys, but I also disagree with you in a sense that you both boiled me down to being like, you have to be able to recite fucking Homer to vote. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying it has to be hard, but I'm saying you have to know some level of shit about what's going on in your country to be able to choose who runs it. I think that there should be. Well, I don't know. I don't know what that is. And I've had like 2 seconds on the toilet to think about this. I don't know what that is. But give me like an hour and another drink and I'll come back to you with something super dope. But no, I mean, look, I see where you guys are coming from, and I understand that it's about inclusion and not exclusion, and that's how our democracy is built. I do understand that. But the thing that continues to grind me is that we sort of have this assumption that it's sort of like the markets, right? That the markets will figure themselves out, and that, everybody who has their shit together sort of in combat with the people who don't, the tides sort of level out. And I don't think that's necessarily the case. And I think, I think that we have to have some sort of way to figure out that there's at least a baseline understanding. So you are going to choose someone who's going to have a absolutely monumental effect on our country for the next 4 years, domestically and abroad. You have to know something. You have to know more than
the electoral college is for. Is that the electoral college is there to prevent a majority vote of people who may or may not be uneducated in what the country, quote, needs. So that's what that part is for. So
I'll make 2 points that are kind of parallel. I'll use an example. There was a measure on the ballot in Santa Monica specifically. Santa Monica is obviously very affluent. It's very neighborhoody. It's very suburban. And although there's a massive business district, and so there's all this contention between the developers and the homeowners in Santa Monica. And they had a measure on the ballot that said that any building over 32 feet, including all public buildings, schools, hospitals, everything, would need to get a permit that was granted via popular vote before they could basically get that permit. And so, of course, it was just going to be a whole bunch of people who don't want traffic on their street to say no to a potential revenue generating business. And I voted that shit down with the quickness. I hardly even needed to research that one out of all the 30 something things that I had to vote for in this election.
I had 2, by the way. Oh no, 3. So mine's pretty easy.
You had 3? Seriously,
it was funding for education.
Dope. I think it was in the 20s to 30s, things that I had to vote for. It was crazy. But there's a lot of other measures that are essentially inefficient. Bringing things to a popular vote every time you need something is inefficient. So in the same vein, I think administering a voter qualification test is inefficient, and there's no chance it could be practically enforced. So on top of the fact that it would probably be biased and racist and classist, it is also impossible to enforce, and I won't vote for something for that based on from a practical standpoint. And
so from a political standpoint, that I'm pressing to get into this with you because, again, I had to go into a meeting when you're G-chatting me about this whole thing. You can't spin it as a literacy test. That will never, ever, ever fly. So instead of spinning a literacy test, you spin it as, now, how can I work to make voters educated? And so instead of becoming a literacy test, and now it becomes an education issue.
Education.
See? That's what I've been telling y'all motherfuckers. Education.
Okay.
Hold on, sorry. Continue.
Can I finish? Because Price, again,
can I breathe?
You talked about literacy, and it's like, I didn't get to this point, but this is definitely an education piece, not a literacy piece. There's a distinction in there that is weird. But this is something that you definitely have to go at to be able to educate the electorate. And it used to be the responsibility of the media. They are doing a terrible job at that because you can't really find a place that's impartial. I love the TV show Newsweek that was on HBO because it's like, you know what? These dudes are spending some knowledge. They're trying to make it impartial. Throw all this shit into a bowl and say, this is how you guys should be able to hopefully look at it. But now it's not done that way.
And that immediately makes them discredited by half of America.
Right, yeah, no. So, but again, there has to be an education piece. How can we get people more educated about this so that way when they do get to the polls, it's not just, I saw this on Fox for 5 minutes. I saw this on NBC for 5 minutes. And they're just going, cool, check, good to go, solid. So it's an education piece, and this is not something that can be done within a 4 to 8 year span. This is a long haul project because I won't go down the whole pathway, but I think the way the education system is done currently is some shit. Common Core, I think, is terrible. I think having to teach to a national standard is terrible because now the people that are the professionals, the teachers, they can't effectively influence their subjects, their students. They can't teach how they feel is most effective because now instead of teaching for comprehension, they're teaching to pass the test.
I feel you, but we should keep
we
this.
are way gone.
That's what I said. Like,
You know what sucks? The Knicks. The Knicks are fucking terrible.
Like I said, I'm not going to get into that whole path because that's a whole. I'm very passionate about the education piece, but I think we got to work on educating the electorate, and so that way, now when we get to these polls, we can make a much more educated point of view. And I think social media has done an okay job. Again, Facebook was able to put out, hey, these are your candidates. You had Trump, had Stein, Johnson, McMullen, Clinton listed. It's like, here are the issues. Here's their website. And you can click on each one. You get a quick snippet of everything. And the fact that everybody's attention span now is 0.3 seconds. They had literally 2 sentences for abortion, 2 sentences for economy, 2 sentences for, and they just, bake that in real quick. So I think that part is interesting. So I think, how can we do this education piece to make it much more efficient to make sure that the electorate, the people that are actually casting these votes that are going to go to the electoral college, how can we make them more educated and knowledgeable about what is going on for the candidates versus what is pushed forward in a 10-second media ad, right? So that's my take on it.
All right. So my final words will just be this. It'll be educate. What we were talking about: education, empathy, and engagement. That's what we want from this entire thing. Whether you're watching this live, we really appreciate you. We appreciate the questions that have come in either on YouTube, either via text to all of us. And if you're watching this sort of anachronistically or offline, the message is still the same. Get in touch with us. Get in touch with your friends, talk with your family. These aren't always comfortable conversations, but they're conversations that need to be had. We'll sit here and we'll agree on a lot of things and we'll argue with each other about some things. But you got to understand that we all have the same eyes towards the same goal. It comes from a mutual respect and an understanding that if you come at it from a point of view, and I'm able to express it in a way that makes sense, then we are always happy to have you. So get in touch with us. Tymon will be live tomorrow. He's going to talk a little bit more about this, maybe answer a couple questions that we haven't been able to get to. We ran a little long, but this was this was a different day, and we won't have many like this. So we wanted to make sure that we were involved and brought our perspectives to the table. That's all from me. You guys close yourselves out. Educate, empathize, engage. I'm gonna make a test that you two can't pass, and you both suck it.
All I'm concerned with is passing the GMAT with the score that I want right now. But my final words are, again, I'm gonna go live tomorrow, and I would love to actually have it be a live discussion. I'm probably gonna talk about the importance of journalism and this new political party that I would like to see made. But if anyone has a question, like if anyone actually tunes in and asks a question in real time, I'll answer that. Because we really do want to engage with you guys, and the feedback has been great, like Price said. But we have a long way to go if we're actually gonna, use this as a platform for change. And so we really are expecting to hear feedback and hoping to hear from you guys. So please reach out to us and engage us with it so we can learn and grow ourselves.
One, I'm shocked that Price is the one that wrapped this whole thing up because he's usually the one that's carrying everything super long.
I've got like 30 more questions, but I'm getting tired and I'm real hungry.
I feel you. But for me, again, my whole thing has always been empathy. Can we try to understand where other people are coming from? But I know Tymon is going live tomorrow. I actually have 2 topics that I want to be able to speak on. We just got a question in that is a comment on this live broadcast that I want to be able to address. And then there's another one on the documentary, the 13th, that I want to be able to address. So I'll probably be doing 2 live broadcasts within the next week or so to be able to address those questions. And we actually got one via text, about the whole voting process. We touched on it here, but I want to make sure that we captured everything because it was a 3-part question, I feel. But again, ask questions, be involved. We want to make this grow out of our inner circle, right? Have these conversations. And so while this one may not be directly related to race relations, it's an important conversation because if you guys look at the vote, it literally is right down minority, white. It was very, very easily split and very visible for everybody to see. So obviously that we have a long way to go. Even speaking with people that may be white that are working in a very African American industry realizes this fact that we are not in a post-racial society. No matter how much people want to be able to push that forward, that is not the case. So bring forth your questions, ask us questions. We don't know everything, obviously. We just want to get as much information as possible from as many sources as possible so we can have this conversation. So again, look for Tymon's live broadcast tomorrow. I'll be coming out with the next week, with a couple probably on the 13th and a couple of questions that we got during this session tonight, and then we push forward from there. So again, thank y'all for coming in tonight. And do y'all have any other words, Tymon, Price? You guys good?
We'll get through this.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Look, we have a great opportunity, and so let's make it happen. Willie said it. We're not there. We're not there, and we got to be honest about that. And we gotta make it happen. And please, stay in touch. Stay up with us. Even if you don't agree, even if you think some of the stuff that we said was wrong or misguided, let us know.
Even if you think Price is the biggest dumbass possible, I'm sorry. He's part of.
See, man, you made it like a full 60 minutes. That's fucked up. You know what?
All right, so we'll see y'all in a little bit here. Hey, new episode coming out in a couple weeks. Make sure you guys check out the one that we recently posted on Sunday, and we'll get back to y'all here soon. Deuces. Chelsea's going to be winning the title, by the way.